Pantheon is a new mysterious villain organization in Black Ops 6 who works from the shadows. Their existence completely unknown, but luckily, I have found every piece of information about the Pantheon in Black Ops 6, and I'm going to tell you the complete story of the Pantheon, from their involvement in the Russian numbers brainwashing to the death of Alex Mason and brainwashing of Bell. Let's dive right into the story you need to know. Founded in 1962, the Advanced Technologies and Applications Division of the CIA was created as a cover for the organization known as the Pantheon. The Pantheon was created to provide an overarching organization for all the different projects and ambitions of the CIA, from creating the newest weapons to brainwashing programs and planning full chemical assaults of other cities. The Pantheon would encompass it all under the guise of the Advanced Technologies and Applications Division of the CIA. The CIA decided to build a new headquarters for this division in a remote region of eastern Kentucky. However, the facility was so remote that all of the workers had to take a train from a nearby town into work in the morning instead of driving their cars because it was that remote. When entering this building, though, the workers would be greeted by a stunning cover for Pantheon, the Advanced Technologies and Applications Division of the CIA, 18 stories underground and hidden from public view. However, this facade was just that. The entire organization was secretly the Pantheon Division of the CIA, planning and working on the most vile and powerful weapons the CIA could come up with. Interestingly, the organization became more twisted when following the numbers brainwashing of Alex Mason and the defeat of Dragovich in 1968, as Pantheon would be assigned to figure out how the numbers brainwashing worked and figure out how to reverse it, something we see from various different documents scattered around the Advanced Technologies and Applications facility. There's actually even a stack of papers that go into research into Nick stacking, which is a form of cryptography involving numbers assigned to a letter, and then you use a numerical sequence to decode it and tell you the letters and a phrase. This is basically the exact same system that Alex Mason was trying to decode in Black Ops 1. We even saw that Pantheon was getting really close to actually figuring out how the numbers brainwashing worked, with this one paper right here stating that having a flat black background behind the numbers was more effective. In reality, no one was ever de-brainwashed of the numbers. Other forms of brainwashing were used on them and had just been stronger than the numbers, like Reznov's brainwashing of Alex, or the MK Ultra used on Russell Adler. But the numbers brainwashing isn't the only brainwashing that Pantheon used. This exact facility was used to brainwash Bell in Cold War. We see that Adler had a visitor pass to this exact facility starting on January 17th, 1981, exactly 4 days after Bell was shot in the head and almost a full month before Bell would arrive at the safe house in East Berlin in Black Ops Cold War. Bell was brainwashed by Adler and Park at the Advanced Technologies and Applications facility in Kentucky, and Adler knew that this facility had been doing unsafe and unsanctioned experiments on humans since he had done the exact same thing to Bell using the MK Ultra program here in Kentucky. But what Pantheon was working on was actually far worse than MK Ultra. Pantheon began developing a brainwashing chemical called the Cradle in 1976. This was designed to act as a semi-super soldier serum to enhance soldiers before they ever enter the field of combat, brainwashing its victims to push themselves past their physical limits and make them more susceptible to brainwashing to create the ultimate obedient soldier. Though they never actually got the serum into a working condition until roughly 1980, when they sent a letter to the Department of Justice demanding that they be allowed the ability to test their new pathogen on humans. What makes Pantheon evil, however, is the fact that they became more and more extreme in their methods and had already begun human testing long before they had ever received approval from the Department of Justice. One such example is one Tyler Fuel, the first test subject on the effects of the bathysphere. We find a document in the wall on the observation chamber just outside describing him as a 5'5" male weighing 120 pounds. That's a really small dude, but it never stated what happened to Tyler, and he is never mentioned anywhere else, so we can only assume the worst. Pantheon had sold this idea of testing this on humans to the Department of Justice by saying that they were going to use it as a way to combat pathogens from enemies, and they would plan and demonstrate the effects of pathogens on urban environments with one such department, the Joint Projects Department, which would focus solely on recreating what an airborne pathogen would look like in Moscow, East Berlin, and Washington, D.C. There was real research going on in the Advanced Combat Research Department, however. As we can see, there was early versions of bomb drone on a workbench, early sentry gun designs, and even a half-built AGR Mark I. But the Department of Cognitive Research was the darkest. It was here that Pantheon would begin developing the Cradle in 1976, and it was here that in March of 1981, they would start testing the Cradle pathogen as a super soldier serum on a volunteering participant, and then many other participants as we hear the voice in Case's head state, the Cradle would give birth to a new generation of operatives. The participants' names were never stated, just that the first participant who volunteered was Case 1. Following this, in March of 1981, as we see on a document on the mission board in Black Ops 6, Pantheon would begin testing on their first participant. But Pantheon, however, had its share of objectors to what they were doing, with one letter labeled confidential in a binder. The letter comes from someone named Maxwell, written in late May 1981 to an unknown friend. But in it, he says he is trying to smuggle out a dose of some chemical, which we can assume is the Cradle, and he had hidden the stolen dose in a rubber duck. No, I'm not joking, a rubber duck. He begged his friend to find this duck and turn it over to the government, as he couldn't stand the experimentation being done on human beings. His fate remains unknown, but there is a hint that he was captured in a document memo from Deputy Director Daniel Livingstone, saying following a security incident recently, an audit was going to be conducted by security and access was going to be monitored following the incident around the facility. Around this time, Case 1 began to make significant progress when being experimented on with the Cradle, and he would be the first to move on to the next stage of testing, with the other participants just beginning to enter the trial stages of the Cradle. It is after entering this next stage of Cradle testing that Case 1 began to exhibit unusual behavioral changes, seemingly lashing out at scientists and possibly other participants, one of which may have been Jane Harrow, who appears to be one of Case's closest friends in the Cradle program, if in fact it was her who was involved. He was placed under 24-hour observation, but this is when Perseus enters the picture. A set of documents reveals that the Department of Internal Affairs was investigating a connection to Moscow within the facility of some individual born in the year 1948 in Mongolia with direct ties to being an operative for Moscow, as they state in the paper. The next document you get to read is a memo to every employee of the Pantheon facility from Mr. Higgins, stating that after a recent breach in security, an unknown foreign agency with advanced capabilities was going to execute a coordinated cyber attack on their systems. All directors would need to assemble to reset the servers, and everyone was going to be required to change their passwords. Failure to do so would be a criminal offense. Around this time, Case 1 began to formulate a plan. Believing he was being poisoned by the Cradle, he would wait until the server and system reset, resetting everything across the entire facility, including the security measures. He would wait until the server and system reset were scheduled and sabotage the Cradle project, exposing everyone else in the facility to the same poison that ran in his veins. In the first week of June 1981, when the servers in the system reset at the Advanced Technologies and Applications Center, Case 1 sabotaged the facility, exposing everyone there to the Cradle. However, as we see when we return to the facility in 1991, no one actually died from Case 1's sabotage, but instead the result was that Deputy Director Livingstone shut down the facility and Pantheon stopped working altogether. The participants were made to be brainwashed using MK-Ultra, with Russell Adler overseeing the brainwashing personally, as he had been the only recorded successful attempt at MK-Ultra brainwashing. This worked quite effectively, as one of the goals of the Cradle was to soften the mind, to make the test subjects more susceptible to brainwashing, with Jane Harrow, possibly a participant, having no memory of her time in the Cradle program and falling under Russell Adler's tutelage following the facility's shutdown in 1981. And then there was Case 1. He was renamed and remade by Russell Adler to be as obedient as Bell was, but without any of the other conflicting memories Bell had. Case 1 was renamed William Calderon, with his call sign becoming Case, a name that Russell Adler likely picked for him, considering he also picked Bell's call sign. We even see that Case is still under the control of Russell Adler in 1991, doing exactly what Adler tells him to without any questions asked, and when doing so, we see the flashes of the Pantheon effect around the screen when Adler tells him to do something. But Pantheon would somewhat dissolve following the accident in 1981, with all the Pantheon employees instead getting jobs in the CIA under different divisions. However, the former members of Pantheon, instead of moving on, began to rebuild in the shadows of the CIA and across the world. They began making deals and growing their influence in the shadows, with the organization even working alongside Raul Menendez to kill Alex Mason and Jason Hudson. They then framed Russell Adler for the death of Jason Hudson and Alex Mason, and in 1991, they had fully rebuilt the Cradle program. This time, instead of making super soldier serum, they were converting it into a bioweapon designed to make the subjects violent and attack one another like animals, like Case had done in his previous experiment, but this time it was to be intentional. They actually even plan to retake power in the CIA by using their former research of how to best use an aerial attack on Washington, D.C. from their Joint Projects Division, along with their new Cradle bioweapon, instead attacking the United States and trying to regain power using a false flag operation. But their ultimate motive remains unknown. But we do know one thing: Case is not who he seems. So subscribe down below for my video coming out tomorrow talking about the real identity of Case. And until next time, I am Icebergs, your Call of Duty informant.